So, I've got a question for you.
What's that?
Do you know what season you're in?
What season I'm in? That is a great question. I think whatever season I'm in, I do know this. I need to plant and I need to be receiving harvest on seed that I've already planted in another season.
That's good. I know when you go to the word in Genesis, it talks about that we will always be planting and
hmm
harvesting.
Yeah, Genesis 8:22 talks about there will be seed time and harvest as long as the earth continues. There will be winter, there will be fall, there will be spring, and there will be day and night. So we have to recognize what season we're in and recognize when seed that we're sowing. This kind of goes to the parable of the seed and the sower with Jesus, of knowing when the seed that you're sowing is falling on good soil.
Mm. So, what? So, it's not really a shift in the question because I think that the harvest is usually what tells you kind of what season you're in. But what do you do when you're still harvesting fruit or vegetables? Like they're still good there, but it's small.
Mm,
Or maybe it's not as nutritious as it once was.
hmm I think it's a great question because I'm looking at this can of diced tomatoes, and I know that spring into summer we have tomatoes, and sometimes the tomatoes are very luscious in the very beginning because there's a lot of nutrients, there's a
This is
lot of
good.
water, and then by the time July,
Yeah, summer
August
hits.
hits, that fruit starts to wane and get smaller, and the plant itself starts to wither. So,
Sometimes I think that we expect fruit from something or from a season when the earth is literally saying, I'm done. Pull me out. I'm not giving you another tomato. Oh, shoot. Well,
mm,
maybe I will because you kept me in the ground. You watered me again.
mm-hmm,
So I'll give you one more, but it's not going to be that great.
mm-hmm,
So sometimes the fruit can keep coming even out of season. It's just not good.
yeah. And there's not enough nutrients in the soil because you've depleted the soil of the nutrients that that specific item needs.
So that kind of speaks to leaving a season that still is producing fruit. That's hard.
It is.
In the natural, you look at it and it's like there's still good stuff coming from this.
Mm-hmm. I think it speaks to another parable that Jesus talked about, the vine dresser, and how he prunes
Yeah,
even when
that's
there's
good.
still fruit, because the longer a vine of grapes gets, the further the nutrients have to go, and so the fruit gets smaller and smaller and less in quality. You may have more quantity of fruit, but the quality of fruit that you have
Mhm.
is getting smaller and less nutritious.
So that kind of opens up another thought. So if you're a leader, whether inside of a workforce or a work organization or a church or a school, any organization, if you're leading, you are required to know what season your people you're leading are in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important that you know, hey, they might not be able to grow any longer under my leadership. It's time for them to excel.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think as a leader, it's good to know that like well, I've given as much as I could to them, not out of depleting myself, but out of like what I have, they've fully received, and there's nothing more from this environment of my influence can do. And it's time for me to promote them externally or, sideways, whatever.
Well, and I think about it this way like that could really hurt because say you're promoting somebody. If you're promoting somebody, they've walked alongside you. You see the greatness in them that they might not even had seen in their themselves, and you are about to have a huge hole in your team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, the way that we look at things personally is you're always leading leaders up. So there's always someone available, but you are going to have a hole.
Yeah.
But for the good of that individual and the growth of that individual, it's important that you are a quality leader and you do that. But also there's people that could be on your team and you're leading and they're just not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
They can contaminate your fruit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you've got rotten fruit on the vine, we all know what happens when you have
One bad
a
apple
bad
spoils the
apple in the
bunch.
bag that comes home from the grocery store. It may be just one, even from the time you got it until the next day.
That second one, its touching's already
Yeah.
bad.
So, and then the flip side of that is not just being a good leader of people, but being a good leader of yourself. Because before you can lead other people, you have to lead yourself well,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that it's not on my leadership to help promote me and know what season I'm in if I am not recognizing what season I'm in,
That's good.
then I can stagnate my own growth.
That's right.
I can have the wrong mindset. I can say, I mean, perfect example, Fannie Mae. I worked there for 10 years, applied for multiple jobs, didn't get a one of
From
them
within.
from within.
Yeah.
It was an internal job. So it should have been like there were several where I was a good candidate for those jobs, if not all of them. But that was not the field that I was supposed to be in. And I quite possibly stayed in that field for too long.
Oh, I agree.
And, once I left that field, things started to shift for me in my career.
Yeah. So let's go back to the bad fruit that was on your vine that person can no longer maybe receive from you, or you've given them all of the tools that they're capable of receiving. So it stunts their growth and possibly your team by keeping them on. It is a wise leader to shift them to another team,
Mm-hmm.
other leadership. You don't cut them off or let them rot. Letting them rot would be staying on the team knowing they're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
That would be letting them rot. But just cutting them off and leaving them, I mean, that would be a really junky leader.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not our DNA. It would be important at that point to hand them off to someone for fresh leadership.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can even help fill gaps within the organization and say, hey, I see that this is happening over here. I think, Joe Smith would be a great fit and he would help step in. I think it's time for him to grow into a new position.
Hey, and we've seen people flourish well beyond our leadership and well beyond our level of
Mm-hmm.
expertise just by moving them
Mm-hmm.
to another team.
Well, and in different seasons, we have sown a lot of seed into people, and your time is seed just as much as your money, because you trade your time for money at a job, and many times if you're in a volunteer position, whether it be within a ministry or just opening your home up to people and caring for them,
Yeah, that's seed.
that's seed. And we have seen time and again the seed that we have sown into people come forth. And it's always so amazing to see the kingdom principles at work and recognizing, hey, you know, I had a hand in that. Like, yes, that person chose to grow, right? But we had a hand
Absolutely.
in that person's growth and helping foster that growth.
So here's another side note that's fun because if your character is flawed, this will be a problem. So that person, the new teammate, the new team lead, they actually get to experience the harvest. They don't necessarily have to put in the work. Sometimes just shifting the environment gets people out of their funk And then they start putting all the practices that
Mm-hmm.
you've sewn into them
Yep.
over the last umpteen months or
Mm-hmm.
years. And boom, that leader now has a dynamic team member
Mm-hmm.
that is probably pretty quickly going to be a team lead,
Yep.
if not management or a leader over their own group. How do you feel when you see that fruit produced not under your wings?
Well, I'm going to be honest. There have been times where it's like, oh, okay. So they finally get it now that they're over here. But it's like, no, don't, again, don't be jealous because if you do that, if you are jealous of the person that they're growing under someone else's leadership, you are cursing the seed that you planted, not just in that person, but
That's
anyone
good.
else within your sphere of influence. So it takes a mature person to understand that I am a leader and I have sown my time into this person, and I'm so thankful to see that the things that we talked about, I mean, perfect example is your kids, right? Like in our own home, they feel comfortable. They come home, they may lose it on occasion or they may get it. But here's one thing we know for sure outside of our home.
They're always better outside.
Oh,
Your kids are so
they're so
great.
great. I saw your son doing this and it's so great. Or I saw your daughter and that we just know we know what's on the inside of them. And so that is when, as a leader, as a parent, whatever it is that you are doing, you recognize that what you have invested and you call forth that seed and you expect a harvest on that seed, because what you're doing, it's the opposite of cursing that seed. You're blessing that seed and you're calling it forth, and even though you don't see it, um, speaking to what season you're in, just because you don't see the fruit of that seed, hey, guess what? Carrots, onions, potatoes, they grow in the winter. You don't see, other than sometimes you may see the green shoots from the carrots and the onions coming up. You don't see a ton of growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just wrapping up the thoughts on leaders being able to discern and know what season their teams or organization that they're leading, what season they're in. If you have someone that's stagnant on your team, maybe they don't recognize what season they're
Mm-hmm.
in. It's important that if you saw so it makes me think about people who stay in one job doing one thing for like decades. Yeah, first of all, horrific. Like that is just terrible to me. Because if that person has the potential to do that job for that long, if someone would just spend a little bit of time with them and
Mm-hmm.
call the gold out in them or help them find what season they're in, you
Mm-hmm.
should be able to promote or accelerate a promotion
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. That to me is just seeing someone do the same job for so long to me is just
Yeah.
poor leadership if they're under leadership. I understand if you own your own business and this is what we do, but
Reminds me of, like in the movies where there's like the school janitor who's been the school janitor for decades.
yeah, but he's always the one at the end of the football game that comes out and gives the inspirational speech
Mm-hmm.
and everybody is just like in awe. Or
Uh-huh.
the kid who's, down in the dumps and walking to detention and he has the right words to say,
Mm-hmm.
he they're always the ones that have the nuggets of wisdom, but they're mopping the floors.
You're mopping the floors, and it's like you had so much in you and someone didn't see more in you, because that person could be a mentor to high school students. That person could be a mentor to even teachers, right?
Hey, I mean, that person could have been a football coach. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's why it is so important that you are closely in
Mm-hmm.
community with your teams
Yep.
and with your team leaders and the people that you are entrusting to lead the organization. Though that next layer or next tier of leadership or management, they have to be in community. This is not a passing by, hey, how are you? I'm fine. This is not a group event where everyone is together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't one-on-one understand what people are walking or what they have in them in those situations, this is where you have to sacrifice and you have to get across the table from them and genuinely probe with the questions that you as a leader come up with to find out what season they are in.
Yeah, it just reminds me of something that I've heard um, Pedro Adeo talk about. Your face brings favor. And that goes multiple ways, but in this case, it applies because your face being in front of leadership and leadership being in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your boss having a bi-weekly or weekly one-on-one,
That's just gold that you get that.
or your spouse spending time together, and not
Mm-hmm.
just spending the time but being intentional,
Mm-hmm.
saying we're going to do X, Y, or Z
Mm-hmm.
together. um, you have to do that because it shows the other person that you care enough. And who knows, that person could be on their way out the door. They may be interviewing for other jobs.
I always like to look at it this way. And I said I was wrapping this section up, but I like to look at it this way. Say you're at work. I know we mostly are going to touch on work, church, and home because that's our environment, school too. But say you're at work and you have just messed something up bad. Do you have fear because of what they're going to do or say to you to go to your leadership? Are you in fear? Do you feel immediately like, oh, crud, I'm about to have to fess up? I messed up. If fear is the first thing that strikes you and not maybe remorse, that's normal. You screwed
Mm-hmm.
up. If fear is the first thing that hits, something's wrong with your relationship between you and your leadership.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the difference between, you know, my boss saying, "Hey, I have an open door policy. You let me know," and um, my boss taking it a step further and being the leader
Mm-hmm.
and putting that time on my calendar and making it intentional. And he starts off every conversation being relational. How are you doing? He doesn't want to talk about work first. He wants to hear about me. He wants to hear about my wife and my kids. And so when you ask the hard questions, most of the time it's, yeah, we're doing great. Or,
Well, but
sometimes,
we're pretty steady,
yeah.
you know?
But sometimes it's, I'm going to be honest, I have a lot on my plate
Sure.
personally or at work, and it's bleeding over into my family relationship. And so that's what that time is for. So as a leader, um, I, I, I don't use the word boss or manager, but as a leader, you have to be okay with that. And there is a cost. You said sacrifice. There is a cost to
Mm-hmm.
being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cost to being a high capacity leader.
Mm-hmm. It's usually your time.
It is your time, and it is intentional time with the people that are maybe most influential, or maybe the people who have deep roots. But you have to recognize that. Otherwise, I mean, you lose people to good teams because they see where they can be valued other places.
Speaking of work, do you have a minute to go over one more thing before we go?
I think so.
Okay. So, just talking about that balance, that's why it's so vital that you know what season your family is in because you can be a high capacity leader and just kill it at work, kill it in church
Mm-hmm.
leadership, kill it in school leadership or community leadership, and just be really stinking at home. We've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Full transparency. We lived several years that way, thinking that we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I can literally hear leaders telling me, don't worry about your kids will be fine, serve the mission. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Not because the mission wasn't good, and not because I didn't love and honor my leaders, but because I, in my gut, knew that we were in a winter season with our kids and we needed to
Mm-hmm.
hunker down.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, important that you understand what season you're in personally so that you can shift. I personally am in a season of heavy sowing into our family. And, God has blessed me to be at home for over 5 years now, working remotely. And I recognize, it may not always be like this. I pray to God that it is, whether it's me working for someone else or me having my own thing that He helps us steward. But you have to recognize that. And you have to recognize you need to read the warning lights on the dashboard of your life. If your marriage is suffering, if your children are suffering, but yet you're killing it at work, or you're killing it in ministry, none of that matters. Jesus said, "What would it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?"
And it is not, man, that would have been a great place to just end on. That was so good. But it is not your leadership's, it was not the leadership that said that to me. It was not their fault that I missed it. It's my responsibility as co-leader of my home to discern that we were in a different season, because we were killing it. We were
Mm-hmm.
killing it really well.
Mm-hmm. But you can be killing it and it can almost kill you.
Realistically, they are going to allow you to run as fast as you will allow them to let you run.
And when you
And
say
that's
they,
not a negative thing on their part. They're expecting for you to have that discernment.
mm-hmm,
They've raised you up enough to know, hey, bro, it's time for me to just take a little sideline. I'm not backsliding. I'm not removing myself, but this project is a lot.
mm-hmm,
So I'm going to have to step back from a couple of other things.
mm-hmm,
Or, hey, is there a place where I could get a little assistance?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're going to expect you to make that call.
you have to. You have to know what season you're in each aspect of your life. And you can be in winter personally, you can be in fall, which is harvest season in your job, and you could be in summer. You could be in the heat of the battle in ministry. Um, and you just have to know where you are, what season you're in, and know when. The meme of I forget his name from Tombstone, but it says say when. You have to know when to say when.
So good.
So just again to kind of wrap it up, Genesis 8:22 talks about there's always going to be seed time and harvest, winter, fall, spring, summer, day and night.
He wouldn't have told us that there and in Ecclesiastes if he didn't want the Lord, if he didn't want for us to recognize that things are going to shift
Mm-hmm.
continually.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And we have to just embrace the shift, embrace the change, but communicate.
Yep. That's it right there.
So we love you guys. Take care.